Hello and welcome to an interesting topic this time. It's going to be something which is probably a thing which I've dealt with the last couple of months, and something which, if you're a med student or a doctor, you already know yourself. My name is Dimitri, I'm a last year medical student and a MD candidate, and I will be talking about the culture in medicine and why sometimes it can be bad. Also, at the end, I will be going over a couple of tips of how to, just go along with it and eventually maybe change it. Not, I might be to some extent biased, but I think everybody at least a couple of times has seen such fields which are so terrible and so toxic where you would not even want to be closely by or work even in them. But also on the other side, there's also good things about being in those fields sometimes, well, not always. Also, I have to say that I had a tendency to go toward highly surgical fields, especially high-end surgeries like neurosurgery or cardiothoracic surgery, which is not really known to be nice, but that's beyond the point. The first point is that it's still really hierarchical. Now, even though we need hierarchies, and for the most part they're necessary and they're always going to be there, because a hierarchy on itself means that there's someone who knows more than you, and you always need someone who knows more than you, especially when you're learning, so you can go up to them and talk to them and ask them what it is and so on and so on. The problem with this hierarchy is that it's just filled sometimes so much with ego that you aren't able to learn, so you have to deal more with people and egos than just be able to learn yourself. If the hierarchy is flatter, something which I saw in Denmark, then you feel a lot more comfortable with going about your work and mistakes and admitting to mistakes and admitting there's something going on, and just trying more and more to improve and to do something for the team. Because if you're just constantly being bashed for asking questions just because people might think you're dumb while you're trying to learn, and maybe there's a thought process behind that which they don't understand, you're just trying to figure out, then it's kind of really sad. And I have to say that when you have a flatter hierarchy, you enjoy working more with your team and you're actually a team and you don't have to deal with sharks, and you don't have to think about somebody from your team having a problem and just like letting them bleed out. So at the end of the day, I think it's really important and it's really necessary to have and be in a team which is supportive and which is good. The second point is that medicine can be really dogmatic, and I don't really like this point. When I say dogmatic, I mean that it's not really appropriate for change. If there's something that's been done the way that has been done the whole time, then probably nothing is going to change because people just don't want to change that much. And it all comes from above. I've learned that also, that if the chief doctor is the one responsible for everything, and if he's just being, not the brightest one and not the nicest one, then everybody beneath him is going to be also worse. So it all follows the leadership in some sense. But an example I would like to give is that I was making a poster about my thesis now, and I wanted to make it differently, because if you have a poster, you know how it is. It's just a lot of information, a lot of tables, one main message, and then it's just like full packed, the title on top, and just full names from the clinics and so on and so on. But nobody actually goes through the stuff. They just kind of scan through the main information, even if they do that, and they probably don't. And it's really bad. And the way I wanted to do it is just really modernize it and do something completely different, which was like not there. And the main point was that I was going to do the poster where there was like one main message right in the middle, which grabbed the attention and everything around it in a simpler way, so people can actually see what's going on and just get the main message. Because if it's a poster, it's usually a shorter presentation and you have people coming up and talking to you. And I found it really engaging, and I think it would have been something new and something good. But the problem there is that it's not how it's being done, right? It's not how everybody sees it, and if you're doing it differently, then you're probably the wrong one, and you're probably not doing it the right way, because the right way is only the way it has been done. And the last point would be, just the culture itself. It also depends where you work. It could be some departments which are really nice, maybe anesthesia is really nice and internal medicine is also nicer, but if you're a junior doctor, then you're probably going to have a lot of trouble with things like that. But I think you're just getting bashed for nonsense, just like asking questions. If you go in the briefing room where everybody's talking about today's patients, you don't feel comfortable enough about talking about them and maybe asking questions, and there's no time about teaching. And like I already mentioned, is just like dealing with egos is the main problem, is that if you're trying to learn and you ask something and you're gonna get a comment like, is that a joke? Like, are you even joking? It's like, no, we're just like med students trying to learn. if we knew this, we would have probably be attending. And I think just the main problem is that not that you're fighting against something outside. Is problem here is mostly the team you're working with. So if it's an external threat, then it's pretty easy. But if it's also part of the team, then it's a really big problem, because on one hand I have to deal with all the work, but on the other hand I have to be dealing with the team, and if somebody is losing it or having a temper tantrum or whatever, and when you're uncertain about something, you go up to someone and you get bashed for it, and you're just like standing there confused. And the worst part is you can't say anything back, and you also don't have to seem broken, because if you seem broken, they're gonna be happy about it. And it's just like really, really terrible. And I think this is also a big problem in surgical fields. And yeah, I understand it sometimes. I have to say I understand it sometimes. But the main concern I have is that if you stay in such a field where you constantly get bashed, where you constantly get hit from every side, from your team, from above, and from everybody else, and you're seeing huge problems every day, then it's gonna be tough. And I don't think that's going to lead to you being better at the end. And I think it's scaring me, because you're gonna get bitter. When I say you, I mean also me, if I decide to do it. I think just having a normal team, and once you see having a normal team where everybody's supportive and everybody's telling all the others what to do, and when you see how other junior doctors are with each other, for an example, they help each other or something. They just take over a patient when there's too much, and then if somebody wants to go to the OR, they work extra and they just like don't say anything. But also you have people who just want to exceed by bashing you, even if you're just starting out on the same level, and then they're bashing back on even if you start at the same point. And I understand being competitive, we get it, but it just only takes one person to have a extremely terrible team. I think this is another point for some people, which would be the working hours, which are incredibly horrendous sometimes. I think people who really want work-life balance usually don't tend to go towards the high-end medical spectrum and fields, which is, I mean, it sounds like I'm saying it in a bad way, but it's important to know what you want in life. And I think the main question is, do you want to end up as the people who you are working with? Anyway, and the worst part about this is like something which you probably know, which is the hospital food, which is horrendous. I don't think there's anything worse than hospital food. And also, not besides the culture, this is maybe an extra point, which is you just don't get as much as benefits as you do in other fields. For an example, you don't get a phone, you don't get a gym membership, you don't get a car, and then bonuses for something. Of course you do bonuses, but it's like work which you already did. But being in finance or in other sectors like that is probably the place to go. However, I was only one time at a hospital where I thought the food was really great. And I was like, oh, this food is not bad. And you can actually choose, and it was relatively cheap. And I was surprised. And then you end up going somewhere and you think, this is it? And you pay like enormous amounts of money for it. Anyway, now that we finished with the whole thing, here are some tips how to survive. I think choosing the fields that you like and that you're interested in is really important. Second of all, you have to know yourself. You have to know what you want. Are you just doing this to have recognition, to be extremely good at something, or are you doing this because it's fun and you can also enjoy it? And the third point would be, as I already mentioned a couple of times, the team. Having a good team and having a supportive team is probably going to save you more than you think in any situation ever. And I think not having a backstabbing team is probably a thing you can wish for and strive for. And also just try to be yourself a team member, which is really good to be around and have around. Anyways, as skeptic as this sounds and as pessimistic as it sounds, I think a lot of things have gotten better and a lot of things are getting better. It's just that I don't think enough people trust themselves to speak out. I think we're going to do better, but we have to just put some effort. That's it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any funny, interesting, good or bad stories, whatever, make sure to leave them down below, and I'll be seeing you next time.